The phone call came at 3:14 a.m. Mr. Dawson. Your daughter was found in the woods. She was alive. But there's something you need to see. Michael Dawson hadn't seen Claire in 6 years, not since the custody battle, not since the accident. The police said she'd been missing for 3 days. But what they didn't say, what he wouldn't understand until much later, was that Claire didn't remember anything, not the forest, not the screaming, not even that she ever had a father. And when she looked at him that night, in that fluorescent hospital room, she didn't call him Dad. She called him David. Rain soaked the canopy of pines above as Michael pulled up to the emergency entrance of St. Mary's Regional Hospital. The headlights caught a figure standing alone under the flickering overhang, a sheriff's deputy in a poncho, face drawn tight with exhaustion. "Mr. Dawson?" the deputy asked as Michael stepped out of the car. "I'm Sheriff Rhodes. We found your daughter." Michael froze, eyes wide. "Where?" "Edge of Black Hollow," Rhodes said. "Some hikers spotted her near the old quarry. She was barefoot, disoriented, covered in mud and ... scratches." Michael's heart pounded. "Is she hurt?" "She's stable, but she's not talking much. Doctors think she may be in a dissociative state, possibly trauma-induced fugue." The words barely registered. Michael had imagined this moment for years, the reunion, the apology, the desperate explanations. But as he followed the sheriff down the hallway toward Claire's room, a knot of dread twisted deeper in his stomach. He paused outside the door. "She may not recognize you," Rhodes warned. Michael nodded, took a breath, and stepped inside Claire. Sat up in the hospital bed, thin and pale, a bandage across her cheek. Her long hair, once golden and wild, now hung in damp, tangled strands. She looked up and flinched. "Claire," Michael said softly. "Sweetheart?" Her lips parted. Her voice was hoarse. "David?" Michael blinked. "What?" She tilted her head, frowning. "You were in the house. You had the red notebook. You said not to go upstairs. I'm your father," he stammered. "It's me, Michael. Claire, it's me." But she only shook her head. "I don't know you." The monitor beeped steadily in the silence. Michael stared, frozen, as a nurse stepped in and gently asked him to leave Dot in the hallway. Rhodes approached again, arms folded. "She's saying strange things," the sheriff murmured. "Talking about a man named David, red notebooks, staircases that don't exist. The doctor thinks it could be psychogenic amnesia or worse." Michael leaned against the wall, trembling. "This can't be happening. She's scared of something," Rhodes said, "but she won't say what." Later that night, Michael sat alone in the hospital parking lot, staring through the rain. He opened the glove compartment. Inside was an old photograph Claire at 9 smiling arms, around a German shepherd. That dog had died the summer before the accident. Back when they were still a family. He turned the photo over. Written in his daughter's loopy handwriting were 5 words. "Don't trust what he says." Michael's hands went cold. That handwriting hadn't changed in years, but the date scribbled underneath? October 11th, 22/5. Today. And Claire had been missing since October 8th. The next morning, the hospital's hallways buzzed with routine orderlies wheeling carts, nurses scribbling charts, visitors murmuring, but Michael felt as though he were trapped in a soundproof room, disconnected from the world outside Claire's door. He hadn't slept. The photo haunted him. Claire's handwriting, the warning, the date. He turned it over again and again, searching for a clue. But how could a photo from years ago have a message dated today? And who the hell was David? He stood in the hospital cafeteria, coffee trembling in his hand, when a woman approached. Early 40s, professional, cold eyes behind square glasses. "Mr. Dawson?" She said, I'm Dr. Adrienne Keller. I'm overseeing Claire's psychiatric evaluation. Michael straightened. Is she remembering anything? Keller hesitated. Fragments, but there. Disorganized. She's mixing reality with constructed memories. Confabulations? Common in trauma-induced dissociation. What concerns me is how specific some of the false details are. Michael frowned. Like what? She says she remembers a red notebook. That someone named David used to leave notes in it. And he told her not to go upstairs. Michael felt a chill creep up his spine. That's what she said last night. She also described a room with no windows. Said it was under the house. But your property records show no basement, no substructure. There is no basement, he said. Confused, Dr. Keller folded her arms. Mr. Dawson, has there been any history of trauma in the home? Emotional, physical, sexual? Michael's jaw clenched. No, never. She raised an eyebrow. You lost custody 6 years ago. Why? Michael looked away. Because of the crash. My wife died. Claire was in the car. And you were driving? He nodded slowly. And afterward? Keller prompted. Was there any indication of Claire experiencing PTSD? Night terrors? Hallucinations? There was grief. Of course, but she was just a kid. She got therapy. He swallowed hard. I did everything I could. Keller didn't answer. Instead, she handed him a small Ziploc bag. She had this when we found her. Inside was a slip of torn paper, soaked and crumpled. On it, in red ink, was a child's handwriting. David is in the floor. Michael stared at it, the letters shaky and uneven, like something scribbled in the dark. That afternoon, he sat by Claire's bedside again. She wouldn't meet his eyes. Her fingers fidgeted with the hospital blanket. Claire, he said gently, you remember me. Somewhere deep down you do. She looked at him for a long moment. I remember the smell of burnt coffee, she whispered. He blinked. What? It was always on his clothes. The man upstairs, David. He said not to tell anyone about the room. There is no man upstairs, Claire. She leaned in, eyes wide and trembling. He said if I ever spoke about it, he'd put me back inside. Michael felt something inside. Him unravel. I want to go home, she whispered. But not that house. Not his house. That night, unable to shake the image of Claire's haunted eyes, Michael drove to the old house. The one where it all happened. Where he hadn't set foot in 6 years. He stood in the living room, dusty and still. The furniture covered in white sheets like ghosts in waiting. Then he saw it. Small red notebook on the mantel. The pages inside were filled with handwriting. Diagrams, notes, doodles. And at the top of the first page, if I forget again, David is not real. The house lies. Michael stared at it, heart thudding. From upstairs, something creaked. He was not alone. Michael's breath caught in his throat. That creak, slow, deliberate, came from the second floor. Dust motes swirled in the air, disturbed by something unseen. The house had always been quiet, abandoned for years since the crash. He told himself it was the wind, old floorboards settling. But he didn't believe it. Gripping the red notebook tightly, he stepped onto the staircase. Each step groaned under his weight. Halfway up, he paused and looked down at the open page again. If I forget again, David is not real. The house lies. Who wrote this? Claire? Or something else? At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched long and dim. All the doors were shut except one, Claire's old room. He stepped in. Everything was as she left it, the faded floral wallpaper. The bookshelf half collapsed. A few stuffed animals still scattered on the bed. But something was off. A strip of fresh wallpaper had been peeled away from the far wall. Beneath it, scratched directly into the drywall, was a word, etched deep and frantic. Below. Michael's mouth went dry. He turned, scanning the room. His eyes landed on the corner closet. That door, too, stood open. He walked toward it, notebook in hand. The light inside flickered. Old boxes stacked along the back wall. Nothing unusual. Until he noticed the floorboards. One of them was cut differently, edges uneven, stained. A hatch. He knelt and pulled. It gave way with a soft groan, revealing a dark, narrow shaft descending into pitch black. There was no basement. He had told Dr. Keller, but here it was. And now, every word Claire had said made a sick kind of sense. Michael stared into the blackness. For a long moment, he just listened. No sound. Then a click. He jumped back, heart in his throat. The bulb in the closet went out. The house plunged into darkness. Michael fumbled for his phone, used the flashlight. He pointed it down the shaft. Steps. Wooden. Leading deep. He should have called someone. The sheriff. A contractor. But something compelled him, some primal, aching guilt that had been gnawing at him since Claire looked at him and called him David. He descended. The air was cold, damp. The walls of the shaft were earthen, reinforced, with old timber beams. This wasn't a basement. It was a crawl space expanded, hollowed out. At the bottom, the narrow corridor opened into a low, makeshift room. And on the far wall, illuminated by the shaky beam of his flashlight, were dozens of sheets of paper pinned in a chaotic collage. Drawings, crude, childlike. Red ink, blue crayon. Figures standing in doorways. Blacked out faces. Staircases that led nowhere. Words repeated over and over. He isn't who he says. Don't trust the voice. The mirror is lying. You were in the fire, too. Michael stepped closer, heart pounding. Then he saw it. A mirror on the wall. Cracked, filthy. He wiped the glass. Behind him, in the reflection, another figure stood in the room. He turned around instantly. No one. Just dirt. Rotting wood. Silence. But when he turned back to the mirror again, the figure was still there. Closer. Michael staggered back, dropping the flashlight. It clattered against the dirt, spinning wildly before settling into a dull beam against the wall. The mirror stared back, empty now. No figure. Just his own pale reflection, warped by the cracked glass. He was alone, wasn't he? He picked up the flashlight with trembling fingers. His breathing was shallow, frantic. Sweat trickled down his back, despite the cold. The walls seemed to close in too narrow, too quiet. The air tasted of earth and rust. Then he saw it. A door at the far end of the crawl space, almost invisible, made of thin plywood, scratched, worn. At its center, carved deep into the wood, were the initials DMDAVID Michael. No. David Michael Dawson. His full name. Michael's fingers hesitated on the doorknob. His mind spun with half-remembered fragments. Voices in the hospital, Claire's blank stare, the way she called him David with such certainty. But he opened it. Inside, the space widened. A secret room. There was a mattress on the floor. Old toys, crayon drawings scattered like fallen leaves. The smell of mildew and something sweeter, rotting fruit. And in the far corner, a recorder, cassette, dusty, with a single tape already loaded. Michael pressed play. A girl's voice crackled through the speaker. Claire's, younger. I'm hiding now. He's upstairs. I don't think he knows about this room. I saw him take the notebook again. I'm writing this in case I forget. The voice wavered. The sound of her breathing, fast and shallow, filled the silence. He says my name isn't Claire. He says I used to be someone else. But I remember Mommy. I remember the fire. I know who I am. I do. I do. A click. Then static. Michael stopped the tape, his hands shaking. He didn't understand. None of it made sense. Claire was never in a fire. Claire never lived down here. Claire never. He looked up. Another photograph was tacked to the wall. Claire, maybe 6 years old, holding a birthday balloon. But the background was wrong. This wasn't their old house. And standing behind her, arm around her shoulders, was a man. Michael leaned in. It was him, but not any version of him. He remembered. Thinner, older, a distant look in his eyes, his posture too straight, his smile too still. And beneath the photo, scrawled in red ink, "He wears your face. But he isn't you." Michael stumbled back. Suddenly, from somewhere above, came a new sound. Footsteps. Someone was in the house. He rushed back up the shaft, heart hammering, flashlight beam jerking wildly. Each step creaked underfoot as he reached the main floor, stumbling into the hallway just as the front door creaked open. A silhouette stood in the frame. Rain behind him. Sheriff Rhodes. "Mr. Dawson," the sheriff said carefully, "you weren't supposed to come back here." Michael's pulse pounded. There's a room downstairs. A hidden room. Someone lived there. Claire knew about. Rhodes didn't move. "Who's David?" Michael demanded. The sheriff's eyes flickered. Then flatly, "You are." Michael froze. "No," he whispered. "I'm Michael. Michael Dawson." Rhodes stepped inside, water pooling beneath his boots. "We've been trying to tell you that for years," he said quietly. "You just won't believe it." Michael backed away as Sheriff Rhodes stepped into the house, the floorboards moaning under his weight. The storm behind him cast rippling shadows across the living room walls, like flickers of firelight. "You're confused," Michael said, voice low and trembling. "I'm not David. I'm Michael Dawson. Claire is my daughter." "You're someone's father," Rhodes replied, shutting the door behind him. "But not in the way you remember." Michael stared at him. "What the hell does that mean?" Rhodes sighed, taking off his hat, rain dripping from its brim. "You were institutionalized at Ridgeway 6 years ago after the crash. We released you under supervision 18 months later. Therapy, medication, the works. But something didn't hold." "No," Michael whispered. "I was grieving. I got help. I've always been Claire's father. She was placed with her aunt after your breakdown. Claire doesn't remember the crash because she wasn't. In the car, your wife was. Alone." Michael staggered back. "No, Claire was with us. She was in the back seat." Rhodes stepped forward, voice quieter now. "There was a girl. But she wasn't your daughter. She was a foster placement from a failed adoption. You renamed her Claire. You changed records. You created this narrative in your head, built around your guilt." Michael shook his head violently. "No, that's not true. You even built this fake room beneath the house," Rhodes said, glancing toward the stairs. "Told her it was a secret playroom, but she wrote about it. Told counselors. That's why she was taken away." Michael's knees buckled, and he dropped to the floor, the red notebook falling from his hand. "No, that's not what happened. I remember her. I remember her laugh. Her handwriting. She remembers you too," Rhodes said. "But not as a father." Michael stared at the floor. The memory of Claire's voice echoed in his ears. "He said I used to be someone else." He thought she meant David, some imaginary threat. A ghost. But what if she meant him? "I visited the hospital today," Rhodes added. She had a flashback. Said she remembered you standing over her, telling her stories about fire and mirrors. She said you talked in another voice, a different man. "No," Michael whispered again. "I would never hurt her. Did you?" Rhodes asked softly. The silence stretched. Then, "I need to see her," Michael said hoarsely. Rhodes studied him. You can't, not like this. We've already contacted Dr. Keller. She wants you evaluated again. Michael's fists clenched. His world felt cracked, like the mirror downstairs reflections warped, impossible to trust. But something in him refused to believe the sheriff. There were too many gaps. Too many things he remembered with clarity. Like the handwriting, like the voice on the recorder, like the photo in the glove compartment. With today's date written in Claire's scrawl, he stood slowly, and then said the only thing that made sense. Then who the hell has been sending me notes? Rhodes froze. What notes? Michael's voice was ice. The photo. The writing. The notebook. The handwriting matches her, Sheriff, not me. If I'm delusional, why are new messages still showing up? Rhodes didn't answer. Behind them, from the second floor, came another sound. A whisper. A voice. David? Michael turned. Claire stood at the top of the stairs. Claire stood barefoot at the top of the stairs. Hospital bracelet still dangling from her wrist. A pale blue gown clinging to her frame. Her hair was damp, plastered to her temples. Her eyes locked onto Michael's, but they weren't blank anymore. They were filled with fear. How did you get here? Michael whispered. Rhodes spun around. Claire? You're supposed to be under watch. I snuck out, she said quietly. I needed to see for myself. Her voice was different now. Older, controlled, no longer the fragile amnesiac girl in the hospital bed. I remembered, she said, descending one step at a time. Not everything, but pieces. It started 2 nights ago, in the woods. I saw the house again. Not in Dreams Inn. Flashes, like film reels, out of order, but real. Michael moved toward her. Claire, I don't know what's happening, but I swear She stopped him with a glance. I know you don't remember. That's the problem. She turned to Rhodes. You didn't tell him, did you? About the second room. Rhodes frowned. What second room? Claire pointed to the far wall of the living room. It's behind there. Michael stared. That wall had always been solid, unremarkable. I scratched it when I was little, she said, and it flaked. Drywall over brick, but the bricks faked too. Without waiting, she walked to the wall, pressed her hand against the faded floral wallpaper, then pushed. A hollow sound echoed. Michael's heart thudded. Rhodes stepped forward, pulling a small folding knife from his belt. He slit the wallpaper, revealing plywood beneath. After a few tense moments, they peeled back a panel, and behind it a narrow passage. The 3 of them stared into the darkness. Claire took a deep breath and stepped inside. Michael followed without hesitation. Rhodes hesitated, then cursed under his breath and ducked in after them. The corridor twisted unnaturally, descending at an angle too steep for typical architecture. The walls felt wrong, too close, almost moist, as if they'd grown inward. Over time, then the passage opened into a chamber, larger than the other, stone walls. A single hanging bulb, faintly glowing. And on the far wall a mirror, not cracked like the last, perfect, pristine. But what was reflected inside it was not the room. Michael stepped forward. In the reflection, he saw himself standing beside Claire, but behind them, visible only. In the glass was the shape of another man, tall, gaunt, wearing Michael's face, but hollowed out. Eyes empty, mouth parted. Claire spoke softly. That's him. Michael turned. That's me. No, she said. That's the part of you that splintered, the part that lived in here with me, the one that told me to forget. Michael staggered back. Claire stared at the mirror. You weren't trying to hurt me. You were trying to protect me. From him. But he got stronger every time you remembered. She stepped closer. The notebook. The warnings. I wrote them for you, to keep you from becoming him again. Michael shook his head. I don't understand. You don't want to understand, Claire whispered. The reflection moved. Michael turned nothing there. But in the mirror, the figure stepped forward. Claire reached out, touched the glass, and the light bulb exploded. Darkness swallowed the chamber. Michael shouted. Rhodes cursed. The flashlight snapped on again, revealing Claire was gone. The mirror was shattered. And on the floor, scrawled in blood-red ink, one more lie and he wins. The beam from Rhodes' flashlight cut across jagged shards of broken mirror, the glass glinting like teeth in the dark. Michael dropped to his knees, frantically scanning the floor. Claire, he shouted. Claire. Rhodes moved through the chamber with urgency, hand on his gun. She was just here. There's no way. Out. No other exit. Michael's fingers trembled as he picked up the blood-red message on the ground. One more lie, and he wins. What does it mean? Rhodes asked. Michael couldn't answer, because something inside him was breaking, coming loose. He touched his temple. A sharp pain bloomed behind his eyes, like pressure building, memories crashing into each other like waves. His wife's funeral, the accident, a little girl crying. But it wasn't Claire's voice. It wasn't her face either. Michael, Rhodes said, we need to go back upstairs. We'll get a search team. Michael staggered up, grabbing the flashlight. No, he muttered. This isn't about finding her. This is about remembering. He turned toward the mirror's shattered frame, reached in. His hand brushed something paper, taped to the back of the frame. He peeled it off, unfolded it. A photograph. His wife standing beside a child. Not Claire, a different girl. Her name came back in a whisper. Emily. His real daughter, the one who died in the crash. The truth came rushing in, wild and screaming. Claire wasn't his child. She was a foster placement, one of many. But she reminded him of Emily, so much so that, in his grief-blinded haze, he renamed her, reimagined her. He had started over, built a new life with her, rewriting the old one, telling stories, inventing memories, convincing both of them it had always been that way. Until Claire found the truth, until she remembered who she was and what he wasn't. She tried to leave. Michael whispered, numb. She told someone. That's why they took her away. And deep down, the part of him that couldn't bear to lose a second daughter, that part, David, the fractured piece of his psyche, buried the truth. Locked it in notebooks, in mirror rooms, in dark places beneath the house where no one could hear. I did this, he said, voice hollow. I made her forget, because I couldn't face what I'd done. Rhodes stared, the weight of it all, sinking in. Suddenly, a sound. Footsteps above. They bolted from the chamber, up the corridor, through the broken wall. Into the living room. Claire stood by the front door. She held the red notebook in one hand. Her face was calm now. I came back because I needed you to see, she said. To stop pretending, to let her go. Michael looked at her, eyes full of tears. I'm sorry, he whispered, for everything. Claire nodded once, then walked past him, out the door, into the rain. Rhodes followed her out, calling for backup. But Michael stayed behind, alone in the house, surrounded by echoes and lies. He sat on the couch, notebook in his lap. He turned to the last page. The truth is the only way out. He closed his eyes and finally remembered everything.